if they expect me to walk away from Luton with nothing, I'll make very sure there's nothing to walk away from.
Hello and welcome to the Oak Road Hatter podcast. I'm Billy Mully, joined today by just Jamie Castle, Kieran Robertson, who's normally on these calls. He is out doing a bit of content for Oak Road Hatter in Holland. He's had a great time, so I'm sure he'll be back very soon. But for now, it's just suffering with us too. We're going to be reviewing the events of Friday night. It turned out to be a rather eventful 90 minutes of football, and there was a particular incident. I don't know if you can cast your mind back, Jamie, to what it was that's grabbed the attention of the masses. So we'll be discussing that. We're discussing all things Burnley versus Luton, also addressing latest rumours in the January transfer window. And we'll end up with a Bolton review as we head back to Bolton for what is the FA Cup third round replay. Winner, as we brought to you last time on the pod, is a tie against either Crystal Palace or Everton at Crystal Palace or Everton. Jamie, how are you?
Yeah, pretty good. It's nice to have a free weekend. It was an efficient trip up to Burnley and back, thanks to the bobbers on the way back. But no, I mean that incident at Burnley, I think I know what you want about, and I'm pretty sure James Trafford will thank us for being safe and made Kieran Robertson X-rated rant. Because if he was here, no doubt Kieran would have gone on one, let's say, in his usual fashion. So now he's got me, who probably is the more balanced and constructive view, which is why me and Kieran work so well. But no, good. Looking forward to chatting Burnley. Massive point. And yeah, got from today, 16 days until the Brighton game. So yeah, a long time to go.
As we both mentioned there, eventful night in Burnley. We'll start at the very start of that, and that was the lineup. There were question marks as to sort of the wing-back situation now that Issa Kabore's gone to AFCON. It eventually led to Chio at right wing-back, Doughty left wing-back. Clark came in as well at a sort of left wing position because of Jacob Brown's absence. What did you make of that? Was that what you expected? Were there any, I don't want to say surprise omissions, because I guess looking at that is one of probably only a few ways to have gone. But did you expect Clark on the wing? I think that's the one that threw me.
Yeah, that was the surprise selection, especially on the left, given that we know he's right-footed. And yeah, I mean, when you look through it, Brown was obviously suspended. Chio was being used at right wing back, so it really was only Clark or Chong that could have played in that wide role from the start, unless they shifted Duly over and put Morris in the middle. So in hindsight, when you look at it, there probably wasn't too many options. But having said that, I thought Clark showed his quality in spells. And yeah, of course, there's going to be some rustiness. His first start since that day in May. So yeah, that's 6-7 months out. So understandable in terms of some of the rustiness that he showed, but in glimpses showed his quality, and I think he showed why last year he was our most technical player. Obviously now, thanks to Ross Barkley, he's not. But I mean, he's certainly not far behind Ross, and he's probably in that top 3 or 4 in terms of technical ability in the team, and he showed that in glimpses against Burnley. So exciting to have him back, and looking forward to seeing what he can do after a run of games. And then likewise, Chio at wing back, you've really only got one of two ways to go. You either put Doughty on the right, and then you go with Bell or Giles on the left, or you put Ogbeni on the right, as Rob did. So yeah, I think when it came out, there was a few raised eyebrows, but in hindsight, and sort of when you look a bit deeper, I think it was a fair selection.
And when you look at the first 30 minutes, Jamie, you were there, you got to see it firsthand. It was an excellent start. I think we looked to cut above. They really struggled to get out. We sort of penned them in. And you sort of, when you think of Burnley and you think how they won the league last season, you sort of look at how they've been assessed so far this season, where I think the narrative is that they play very good football, but get themselves into trouble and that thing. For us to dominate totally in that first 30 minutes, it's just similar to, I guess, Sheffield United, where we're playing a team in and around us, and we start very brightly. That can only be seen as a positive. We won't speak about the rest of the 60 minutes until sort of later on, but that first 30 minutes in isolation, that is how you want to start a football match.
Yeah, we were awesome. I think, I mean, I wasn't at Bramall Lane, but that first half hour was a carbon copy of Sheffield United on Boxing Day from what I was watching at home on Prime. We were, I said after the Sheffield United game, that first half hour was Premier League away at Championship and the Cup, and that is exactly what that was in the first half an hour. And then again, Company had to make a few tweaks. I think they started to go a bit more direct, just to sort of to try and play through the lines a bit more. And yeah, I think last year they were a cut above us, understandably, by the way, because of the money that they had spent. They had the parachute payments and the players they'd signed, so they were a cut above us, and deserved to win the league. They were by far the best Championship team, certainly last year, and possibly in the last 10-15 years. And this going into the season, the narrative was from myself and most people that they were a better footballing side than us, but we can close the gap through tactics or just the way we do things on and off the pitch. But that's not the case anymore. They're not a better footballing side than us. They've spent £100 million plus. We've spent £25 million tops, and we've closed the gap. We in that first half hour, we showed that we were a better footballing side than them. I'm not going to say that we are generally better than them, because it's based on 2 games against each other, and it's a small sample size. But we've certainly closed the gap, and we are as good as them in all areas of the pitch. And in some areas of the pitch, we are better than them. Tactically, Rob Edwards had us again spot on. And obviously we'll go on to the way the game finished, but it would have been criminal based on that first half hour if we walked away having lost that game. Because that first half hour probably should have been 2 or 3-1, because they had that chance at their end. I think it was Bryn Larson through on goal, but we should have scored 2 or 3. So yeah, again, all really positives going into the Brighton game at home, and games beyond that. You think go away to Newcastle's and Liverpool away to come, and United at home, and if we play that way, we will cause those teams problems, let alone Burnley. And yeah, I tweeted again. You judge your staff on progress, and you cannot have any doubt that there is progress in that team. I think Matt Aquino put a tweet out as well with a graphic showing Barkley's performance and the team's performance sort of game on game, and it's just like an upward sort of bar chart sort of thing, and it's just showing sort of passes and pass completions, so it just shows progress and the way that not only are we getting better, but we're transitioning in terms of the style of play as well. So you can't be anything but buzzing with that first half an hour.
And that style of play element is really interesting, because I think it's one of only a few you can count them on one hand where we've had more possession than the opposite team. You don't expect to do it against Burnley, as we've already mentioned. No. They're a very much ball orientated team, whereas where we've come through the Championship and against some of the big clubs in the Premier League, it's how we keep our shape. It's how we work off the ball that's sort of led to success. So to dominate on the ball only adds a sort of new string to our bow. You think of Barkley and Lokonga together. You don't see too many midfields that they don't dominate. I know we've only seen sort of glimpses of it. I think maybe just 4 games, but every time those two have been deployed next to one another, if you could argue against Chelsea, Newcastle certainly were, Sheffield United, those two win the battle against their if it's a midfield trio or duo, they win it every time, and it's allowing us to play a different kind of way. And I go back to what Edward said at the start of the season, where he wanted us to become multi-dimensional. He wants us to play and sort of get over different kind of hurdles. And I think having Lokonga and Barkley, players that can progress up the pitch, they can, Barkley can find that ball to Chio every time, and as evidenced against Burnley. But there's just so many ways we can form an attack now, which wasn't always there, and that makes us such a difficult outfit to defend against. So yeah, those two have been phenomenal. I think Barkley's getting more of the credit at the moment, but Lokonga as well has been absolutely fantastic. And you sort of think of how disappointed we were when we heard the news of Marvelous Nakamba being out for a while, but I think Lokonga's performances have sort of lessened that issue at the moment. Of course, a lot of football still to play, a lot still to do. We'll go on to the Burnley goal, Jamie. As we've mentioned, the first half an hour, we felt like we dominated. Adebayo on the left wing for Burnley had a couple of sightings where you thought, okay, he's looking a little bit livelier, and obviously he was mightily influential in the goal. Got beyond Tiedemann Mengi and then played the ball into the box, and sort of a scruffy kind of goal in terms of how the ball eventually went in. But just on that goal, do you attach any blame to any of the players there? Do you think there's, as a unit, should we be doing better there? Because it almost felt that half an hour of pure dominance, some of the best football I've seen us play, sort of went to waste.
Of course, you can delve deep into that goal and analyse and sort of point fingers at various players, but I think you have to give Burnley some credit. The way they got to that bar and just sort of cut it across to Amdouni. A bit in jest, but we're going to go on to the equalising goal, and I don't know who it was, because it completely wiped out Kaminsky in terms of he had no chance in saving Amdouni's shot because he was wiped out. But no, I mean, I think for me, defensively, the issue was letting Amdouni have that much space. I think, okay, someone can get beaten. It happens in football. You're not going to win every 1-on-1, certainly at our level in this league. But then you just can't allow for someone of that quality to have that much space in the box. So you've got to have, if you're Osho more centrally or Bell on the left, you just need to make sure you pick up your markers, because if they're there and can even block the shot rather than just let them have a fairly free shot on goal, and that has a better chance of stopping it. So in the grand scheme of the game, it was really frustrating because we just didn't deserve it, and you fear the worst, right? Everyone's saying about how much the better team we are. How the hell aren't we ahead? And then we again find ourselves one goal behind. But it's the league we're in. Burnley were that much better than us last year, and if we'd have conceded that goal last year in the Championship, you'd have sort of probably held your hands up and say good goal. So yeah, they're the sort of goals you're going to concede, and I'd rather, I guess, concede a goal like that than the goals that we did against Chelsea, the way Kabore gets passed to Palmer, etc., and the way Palmer got through for their third. So yeah, they're the goals that I'd probably put my hands up for and be like, yeah, fine, fair play.
I think it's fair to say the second half overall, when you consider how both teams played, it lacked quality. I think we struggled more offensively. You know, Barkley and the Conga were still threatening. The combination between them two was good. It was the combination sort of in and around the box and the final ball that you know, it didn't. In my eyes, I didn't think that we could find an equaliser. I thought it was going to take a mistake or something like what eventually happened to help us get back into the game. And funnily enough, it was Alfie Doughty who struggled more than I've seen him struggle this season, who provided the assist. And Alfie Doughty has been talked in a positive light this season, but it seemed after that assist on Friday night, it sort of heightened. I hadn't seen so much sort of clamour and love for Alfie Doughty from, you know, fans of the Premier League after he scored that goal. I think it's taken him to 6 assists, and that's put him on par with some, you know, very, very good creative players. But it's just interesting that, you know, it was what I'd call his worst game of the season so far. And it's the one where he's probably grabbed the most attention. But in the same breath, you've got to put the ball in the box. He is brave. He takes risks, and eventually, that's what I say won us the game. That's what helped us get back into the game and take that point. We'll move on to the goal because I know it's going to be controversial. We'll get comments on this probably on both sides of the camp. Obviously, you were there. You've had a chance to review it. What were your thoughts initially, and how did that change when you had a chance to watch it back and a bit more time to sort of see the discourse and all the conversations that have followed?
Yeah, I think first of all, being there, I had no idea because it's at the other end of the ground, and all you see is Trafford go down on the floor, having sort of been in some sort of collision with Eli, and then Morris thankfully nods it in, and yeah, there was elements of cheering from the away end, but nothing that was really overexcited because I think half of us knew that there was going to be some sort of VAR look at it, and then when it comes, you're just wishing and you're praying that it doesn't get ruled out, and you actually probably think it's going to get ruled out, which would have been a shame. So that was the overall feeling in the ground, and then when it got given, then the release of just relief and ecstasy for getting the equaliser was brilliant. I think secondly on Company's post match, I think I'll start there before going into my thoughts on it. I think he was fair in what he said. I think in several interviews he was very good in terms of the way he spoke about Luton and not taking away from the performance and how good we were. So I think kudos to Company. And yeah, there's always going to be subjectivity to an instance like that, and he obviously has his Burnley goggles on, like we're going to have our Luton, like we're going to have our Luton ones on when we say what we say. So nothing against Company whatsoever in terms of what he said. I thought he was fair in terms of the incident. Right, so I think first of all, like people saying Elijah looked at him and deliberately went into him, that's a lie. He didn't. Like there's a video on Twitter that I put out. People say, yeah, he looked at him. And he didn't. He did not look at him. His back of his head is at James Trafford. Okay, you might, based on the amount of times he was coming up to claim the ball, he may have been there because he was very good, Trafford, to be fair, in terms of coming out and claiming balls, but he did not deliberately foul him. So that's the first thing. Was there excessive use of force? No. He stepped back twice. And we know Elijah, watching him week in, week out, the amount of times he's sort of having a bit of a sort of a push and pull with a defender. He pulls away from the defender and he sort of tries either to get out of the way of another attacker like Morris was there. So he was probably trying to get out of the way of Morris, knowing that Morris had a better chance of winning the header because Eli was sort of back to the ball rather than head on. So he's probably trying to dip out of the way of the ball. So he's just backed away. And okay, he stepped 2 steps back and he has collided with James Trafford. There's no doubt about that collision, but there's no excessive use of force in terms of deliberately trying to knock over James Trafford. So it wasn't deliberate, and there's no excessive use of force. So that for me are two factors into whether something is a foul, and for me, not the answer to both of those is no. Then on Trafford's side of it, he was coming out and claiming loads of balls, and fair play to him. It's brave goalkeeping. But that one, he was absolutely nowhere near it. He was 3-4 yards from it still. There was 4 players between him and the ball, because you had Eli who stepped back into it, 2 Burnley centre-halves who ducked out the way of the header, and then Morris who then won the header. He was nowhere near the ball. The minute Elijah Adebayo touched James Trafford in the box, he knew that he was nowhere near the ball, and he thought, shit, I better try and win something here, because I'm not going to get near that ball. And if I don't go down, I'm still not getting anywhere near the ball. Morris has a free header. For me, those 3 things means it's not a clear and obvious error to overturn that on-field decision. I think if the referee had given it on pitch, I would have no complaints, because you'd see it in real time. Keeper's has gone down, and more times than not, that's given, because the goalkeeper, that's another conversation. Goalkeepers are given way too much protection. There was one in the first half down by us where Trafford went down under no sort of pressure whatsoever. But those 3 things that I've just spoke to, in terms of deliberate, excessive force, and then Trafford being nowhere near the ball, that's not a foul. For me, it's not a foul. Obviously, Luton goggles, Burnley fans can comment what they like on the pod, and you have every right to your opinion, but it's not a foul. And you cannot overturn the on-field decision. As I said, if the ref gave it on field, I don't think VAR can overturn that in our favour. The ref didn't give it on field. The liner himself didn't wave his flag. In VAR, due to those 3 factors I spoke through, cannot overturn that. So people could say, "Oh, where's the game gone?" I think, to be fair, that shouldn't be a foul. So if you're talking based on the rule book, change the rule book. If you think the rule book makes that a foul, that shouldn't be a foul. The keeper should not be able to have the advantage of using their 2 arms as well to get a ball, and expect to go down under that sort of pressure and win a free kick in their favour. It's just that should be the case. So for me, I thought fair goal, 1-1, and we deserved the point. We did not deserve to lose. So to be honest, even if the consensus from the footballing population is that it is a foul, don't care, because we deserved the point, and football justice was in our favour. So massive point for Luton.
Yeah, it is such a complex issue. I think you've summed it up very well. Probably speaking 4 or 5 minutes on it. That's how complex this issue is. Because in my eyes, I couldn't work out if it goes back to your very first point. Did Elijah have a look? I thought initially he had a look before, whilst Trafford was still on his line, and he was sort of made a go at the ball. This was probably 4, 5, maybe even 6 seconds before it happened. So is that long enough? That's one issue in itself. I also completely agree. The narrative on goalkeepers being overprotected, they massively are. So in my eyes, it comes down to, did Elijah have that look, and was that look sort of sufficient enough? Was it within the time frame? And that's what I can't make my mind up on. What I think when I come to this is my initial reaction to the goal going in, and I didn't move a muscle or celebrate anything, because I genuinely thought that was a foul, because what I saw was Elijah have a look. So in my eyes, I thought it was a foul, but watching it over again hasn't really helped. I don't have a conclusive answer, and I think that's similar to VAR. I don't think it was enough of a foul to rule it as a clear and obvious error, and it goes down to what the referee saw, which was that it wasn't sufficient contact.
But just on that, in terms of how you reacted for the goal, and company raised it. I think it's a fair thing to raise, in terms of there was 3 Luton players that celebrated the goal, and the majority were expecting it to be a foul. But that's because we've conditioned into thinking it is a foul, because 9 times out of 10 it is a foul, and we expect it to be a foul because that's the way the referees are. that doesn't mean to say it definitely is a foul because there's no one has celebrated. It's because we've been conditioned to thinking that it is one. You have to
Yeah,
really step back and think, is it a foul? And I think for those people that love the game, I personally don't think it should be a foul. Like it's one of those things where, like, if it's like a tackle, the ball's been passed and someone comes like a second late. If the ball has gone to another player, it's off the ball. It's not impacted the game. It's not impacted the flow of the game. And I just think, I just think sometimes you have to step back into what we're used to and really sort of deep dive into whether you think that has had an impact on the game and the flow of the game, and whether if Eli wasn't there, would Trafford have got the ball? Who knows? We won't know, but there's a chance that he would have been a hand short of it. So yeah, I just think as much as the point that you yourself and company raised in terms of the reaction, the fan reaction was delayed. The players on pitch was delayed. You watching it, you were delayed. But that's because that's just what we're used to as fans. So I think that's a bit of a non-point given that for me.
yeah, and I think the fact that it's so divisive, the fact that there are lots of Burnley fans that believe the goal was fair. There was lots of Burnley fans that didn't think it was fair. There's lots of Luton fans that think it was fair, and there's lots of Luton fans that didn't think it was fair. In my eyes, shows that it's not a clear and obvious error. The fact that there's such a discourse is such a topic of conversation. Um, in my eyes, rules it as not a massive error from VAR. Um, yeah, it's one that I'm sure will be continued to be spoken about. And it is an interesting conversation because there are so many elements to it. We've both said we feel that goalkeepers are protected more than they should be. Well, yeah, maybe this is an incident, sorry, that shows that we're moving in the right way in terms of that. We're going to go into a short break, but when we're back, we talk all things January transfer window and the Bolton game coming up. We are back for part 2 of today's episode, and as always in the January transfer window, we will touch on the latest rumours, sort of to do with Luton Town. The first one is that Gabe Osho, Luton Town centre back, is admired by both Aston Villa and Crystal Palace. That came from transfer correspondent Dean Jones. Osho, a player that has, you probably look at the sort of timescale that Rob Edwards has been at the club. That's when you've seen sort of the highest upwards turn with him. He has been phenomenal under Edwards. I think, look at all the players that Edwards had at his disposal from the very start of his tenure, just over a year ago. We've spoken about Doughty and how brilliant he's been, but when you consider where Osho was to where he is now, in my eyes, that is the biggest transformation, and it's great to see. We all knew that he had the abilities required to thrive at a Premier League level. I think the interest, particularly coming from Aston Villa, is a great sort of indicator to how good he's been, how effective he's been for us. And it's no surprise really that clubs are going to be looking at him. There's, I guess, a little bit of confusion about his contract situation, but I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jamie, looking at the fact that he signed what the club exercised a year option on his deal last summer means that it's expected that his current deal will expire in the summer. You'd be crazy not to look at it if you were another Premier League club. But a club like Aston Villa, Jamie, did you expect a Champions League chasing club to be interested in Gabe?
Maybe not Champions League, but when you've got someone still of a good age, mid-20s, is improved the way he has. I mean, we all talk about the redemption arc since that Watford away game, but he's improved loads in terms of his athletic abilities. Premier League, he's a Premier League centre half. So albeit, maybe not a Champions League level club like Villa, but when you've got a player like that who meets a homegrown quota, which people forget about, you've got to have, I think, what was it, 8 or 12 or whatever homegrown English players or players that have played for 3 years between their 18th and 21st birthday. That's a big thing for clubs. So they need to fill out a squad based on homegrown players. So yeah, I think it's deserved, and I certainly think you can take the step up. You look at Ezri Konsa, again, another former EFL graduate, and he's gone on to do what he's doing right now for Villa. And why can't Osho do the same? So yeah, well deserved in terms of his sort of his performances on the pitch, and he certainly deserves the recognition from the outside world, and it shows how good we're doing as well. As much as we don't want to lose anyone like Gabe Osho, it shows that people are taking note in terms of how we are progressing as a club and how our players are improving. From a contract perspective, he's either got 6 or 18 months left based on that +1 that we did last summer, and touch wood, hopefully the board are sorting that out and trying to give him a longer deal. But yeah, we'll wait and see. Don't want to make any assumptions like some on Twitter, or don't want to sort of dig too deep about stuff that we are not informed about. So yeah, let's just touch wood. We see a nice little contract extension in the next few weeks, because if we let it go towards February and March, then it starts to get a bit nervy if he's only got 6 months and or less to go.
And then in the previous pod, we touched on Tine Mengi's situation, where again, a couple of Premier League clubs have been rumoured to be interested in him. He's another one that interest he's warranted, but at the same time, you sort of want these clubs to direct their search elsewhere. We'll go on to the situation of John McAtee, who, by all accounts, has been smashing it for Barnsley in recent weeks. There was an exclusive report from Graham Bailey, I think it was in 90minute.com, that Sunderland, Plymouth, Ipswich and Cardiff were all keeping tabs on his situation. Of course, at Barnsley at the moment, thriving, scoring goals, creating them. And I think we're recording on Sunday, and Saturday he played, I don't know who it was against, but Bristol Rovers, in a Barnsley fan account Twitter thing at the end of the game. They done a poll for man of the match. McAtee won it quite convincingly, so it's safe to say he is definitely impressing. There was a report after that from I think it was the Barnsley Chronicle. Said it's likely that he'll stay at Oakwell. And you always get that balance, a little bit like Joe Taylor's situation, where you think, is it worth moving up a division and risk that game time element, or is it worth staying where you are and continuing to do what you do? It's a debate that I'm sure we know Luton Town would have had with certain players over the years. Just coming to you, Jamie, with that, what would you be doing? What would you be doing if you're in charge of loans at Luton Town? John McAtee, as we say, having a really impressive loan stint at our northern branch. Would you take him away for a sniff of Championship football?
I mean, first of all, McAtee, fair play to him. He's doing really well. I think he was on loan at League Two last year, back with Grimsby, and didn't do too well. So to step up to League One and do as well as he's doing, every credit to him in terms of the work he's putting in. And as you say, won the man of the match at a canter for the game yesterday, but didn't even score. So when a centre forward's been in the man of the match despite not scoring, that tells you everything that you need to know about his all-round centre forward play. So really exciting to see if he can make the step up again, either this month or in the summer. In terms of January, I think with Joe Taylor it makes sense because he was sort of at Colchester. He was bottom of the sort of bottom six of League Two, scoring goals for fun, but you could definitely step up from there to a League One side in Lincoln, where you know he's going to get minutes, who are in a bit of a playoff push. They're still outside shot, but yes, still have a chance of being in the playoffs for League One. So that's a bit of a no brainer. But then we all know then that jump to the Championship, and I think you could take him away from a League One playoff. Barnsley, you could easily find him a club in that sort of bottom 6 to 8 mould for sort of the Championship team. For those that may need a centre forward, but then above that, can he get into a Hull or a Sunderland? I think Sunderland maybe because of injuries. Certainly not an Ipswich, a Cardiff maybe, but you need to find the club where it's enough of a step up, where I don't think bottom 6 Championship is, and you don't want him to again then probably be scraping from the bottom of the barrel because you're playing for a bad side in the Championship and you were struggling to score goals. So it's just that big jump from League One, and I would personally keep him where he is, where he's scoring goals, he's playing really well, even outside of scoring goals, for a team that probably will be in the League One playoffs this year. And if he can win promotion with Barnsley to the Championship, that's a really good season for him. And no matter what happens with us this year, he'll be in the Championship. He'll be in the Championship next year, be it with us or be it out on loan from us. So another forward on our books who's really exciting. We've got McAtee and Joe Taylor now, who I think they're certainly going to be Championship centre forwards next season.
Yeah, it's interesting you say about potentially being the Championship. I think if we're still in the Premier League, it might be a good opportunity to send out a player on loan to Europe, or to one of Europe's top divisions. I think that's when you make it as a football club, when you start loaning to Eredivisie or Belgian Pro League. Once you have players out there on loan, I think that's when you can call yourself big time.
Can you imagine McAtee going on loan to like an Antwerp or something? That'd be so cool. or with Kieran being out in Holland, if Go Ahead Eagles need a centre forward, they're 7th, I think, in the top flight of Dutch football. So they're a good Dutch football team. If Go Ahead Eagles, if you want McAtee or Joe Taylor next time, I just give Luton a call. We might just do you a favour.
Let's go on to the third and final transfer rumour, and that includes 2 players here. Mike McGrath of The Telegraph outlined that Reading pair Tom Holmes and Nelson Abbey are wanted at Luton Town. I think he alluded to that even the deals had been agreed. And I think a report said that the deal had been agreed behind the back of both the manager and the head of football operations, which I think, it's bizarre. I think it's probably a good time to touch on Reading as a football club. A dire situation. Luton Town fans know exactly how awful these sort of ownership collapses are, and had the protest, didn't they, at the weekend, that their game against Port Vale was eventually abandoned. But you really do have to sympathise with the Reading fans who are going through absolute torture with bad ownership at the moment. And sort of on the back of that, Tom Holmes and Nelson Abbey, the defensive pair, there's reports suggesting that Reading are open to selling them, being in a difficult situation that they are. But Jamie, coming to you first on the Reading situation, horrible to see, regardless of where your allegiances are. You hate to see stuff like that. And second of all, touching on the players that have been rumoured to potentially join Luton, do any of them particularly excite you?
Well, yeah, on Reading, tough times, and you can laugh and joke about not liking to go to Reading away, or not liking them as a club, but you don't want to see that happen to any club. And then you've got it's one thing to see a club not run too well in terms of not spending too much or bad recruitment, like Man United is doing right now. You meet Man United fans, are obviously upset because their club's not being run well, but it's a completely different thing to have an owner like they've got completely stripping the assets out of the club, selling players for cut prices. Just yeah, I think that's polar opposite to what's happening at clubs like United. And if only national media was taking greater attention to it, we saw it as fans. It was like shouting into an empty room. Unfortunately, and if that's one thing I would change about football, it's that, and greater attention across the pyramid about what's actually happening to these staples of communities, which are football clubs. So thoughts out to Reading fans. Hope you guys get through it. And no matter what, if you stick together as fans, you'll pull through. Be it you have a club, the exact club either in the lower league than it is now, or whether it's a Phoenix club like you've seen at Bury, you'll get through it, and then and you work your way back, just like we've done. So that's on Reading. In terms of in terms of Tom Holmes and Nelson Abbey, know a bit about Holmes. I think he was almost like Gabe Osho's replacement. I think when we signed Osho, I think Holmes was stepped up from the academy and stepped into those shoes. So he's played Champion League One football for a while. He's a great age, 23. So yeah, if you can get a cut price for him, I think he's certainly a good asset to have, and would be someone you take. And Nelson Abbey would be lying if I said I knew too much about him, but he's captained the League One side at 20 years old. He's played for the England under 20s, so you can't go too wrong with that. So again, another great asset to have in the club. And I think there's lots of talk about trying to throw our weight about in terms of being a Premier League club, and that's not signing £10 million players. That is being able to poach assets like these from clubs lower in the pyramid. These sort of assets 18 months ago would have been nowhere near our budget, nowhere near our ability to get. Whereas now they are, A, because of where we are in the pyramid, and B, because of the money we have. So we need to make the most of it whilst it's there. And if these are two of the players we bring in, they'll either be starters for us next year in the Championship, maybe, or they'll be squad players that we loan out to the Championship next year as a Prem team. So I think it's another great bit of recruitment. Our last centre-half signed from Reading wasn't too bad, was he? So if we can get one or two to be as good as Gabe Washoe, then you've done pretty well.
I'll tell you what, Nelson Abbey is a player I really, really like. Left-footed, which ticks a lot of boxes that Luton fans have not been crying out for, because recruitment has been absolutely fantastic. But I think left-footed centre-back has been something on the desirables list for a while at Luton Town. As you mentioned there, fantastic age, 20 years old, captain in Reading, a real leader, dominant in both his aerial and ground duels. He can play out from the back. He's composed, and he plays with so much maturity. And yeah, I think that Reading fans absolutely love him. They absolutely love him. And that's always an indication to how good a player is when Reading fans that have seen him week in, week out probably have the best opinion about how good he is. Of course, he's not done yet. Hasn't signed, hasn't been confirmed by the club, and then there are a few sort of complications that could get in the way. As we mentioned, that the club situation at the moment does play a part in that. But yeah, certainly a very, very good player. And if he does sign the dotted line, then I will definitely get an article out analysing him in a bit more detail. That sums up, that rounds off, everything to do with the transfer rumours. But there is something that we've seen, Jamie, and that is an article from The Athletic. That I think all accounts had to be submitted by the 31st of December. And the latest headline: Everton and Nottingham Forest expecting to be found in breach of Premier League spending rules. It's something that's been lingering. Both, Everton have been deducted points already. Nottingham Forest, after their recruitment, how expensive their recruitment's been, they've always sort of been in and around that kind of bracket as well. Difficult to know what it will mean in terms of potential point deductions, but the article does say under the guidelines, both clubs are now at risk of a fine or a points deduction with formal notification of any charges set to come on Monday. And we spoke about it sort of off air when we first saw it, Jamie, and we spoke about it in relation to our push for survival. Of course, it's something that could be massive in terms of if there's further point deductions for Everton and one for Nottingham Forest, it massively bolsters our chances of staying up. But at the same time, you don't like seeing it. You don't like seeing point deductions, especially when we were harshly treated -60 in 3 seasons. But yeah, I just wanted to get your thoughts on Everton and Nottingham Forest breaching profitability and what's the other word? Profitability and sustainability regulations.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. We don't like seeing points deductions, but rules are in place, and I'm surprised it's only 2. Everton and Forest. I thought there'd be more than that. If the Premier League set rules to not lose more than £135 million in a rolling 3-year period, you have to abide by that. And if as clubs, even if you're close to the wire, and you think you've got reason to be able to add back various variables within the accounts and get to beneath that amount, then you're still running your club too recklessly. So as much as we don't want to see clubs get point deductions, we also want to see clubs abide by the rules. And if you're not abiding by the rules, then you get your comeuppance. So yeah, it will probably be a fine, which is unfortunate because clubs probably deserve point deductions when you're breaching a rule that is so loose when it comes to £135 million of losses in a 3-year period. I mean, come on. And then ironically, they lose that much money in a 3-year period, and you're going to fine them just to make them spend even more money. Like, come on, just yeah, it's a bit mind-boggling. Hopefully, they get a points deduction, even if it's another 5 points each. So it'll put Everton down to 12, Forest on 14. We're on 16. That'll push us out of the relegation zone by 2 places. And yeah, I think the more I think about it, the more I think it's written in the stars. I think based on what happened to us, it is written in the stars for us to stay up because of a points deduction. And I'd love it. Would absolutely love it. And it'd be just exactly what a club like Luton Town deserve. And you speak to people like Vizza, who's the guy that runs Mazzala on private message, and saying that the Premier League needs clubs like us to stay up. Football needs clubs like us to stay up because we need to prove to other clubs that you can run football clubs and do well without losing £135 million over a 3-year period. So for those that say Luton this, Luton that, you just need to just step back and just slap yourself on the head and think, what are you doing losing that sort of money? It's ridiculous. So not only do I want us to stay up for Luton, I want us to stay up for football, because hopefully us doing well and seeing teams like Plymouth sort of do well beyond their means and getting from League One to the Championship, hopefully progress beyond that. Football needs clubs like us. So hopefully we can be a starting point for owners to butt their ideas up and start doing football properly, which is the way we do it.
If there was any indication that there's too much money in football, then losing £135 million in 3 seasons is a rule. Is a rule that you could lose 134 million in 3 seasons and be okay. It's absolutely ridiculous and reckless ownership. We've just spoken about it, and in terms of Reading, it's something that we won't turn this debate into football governance, but it is just absolutely ridiculous that clubs are allowed to operate in that kind of way, and hopefully that this issue can be resolved before we lose more football clubs. Hopefully it's not an issue. Hopefully these Reading cases, the Bury cases, potentially, we're going on to the Bolton preview in a second. Luton and Bolton both in real dire situations because of poor ownership. Something that needs eradicating from source. Let's go on to that Bolton preview, Jamie, and there's not too much to it because we got a feel of what Bolton were like not so long ago in terms of how the game will play out, in terms of how we expect Bolton to approach it. I don't expect too much difference. So let's speak about Luton first and how we approach this game. Of course, we played on Friday, 4 days of recovery. What kind of team you expecting? Rob completely threw us off by naming pretty much the strongest 11 he could against Bolton in the third round, of the FA Cup. Now going into this replay, you expecting something of the same?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, just want to say a word about Ian Purslow, Bolton fan, who sadly passed away after the game at the weekend. Bolton Cheltenham was abandoned because he suffered cardiac arrest and sadly passed away after. So thoughts completely with his family and friends and Bolton fans in general, and no doubt there'll be a minute's applause or silence on a minute or whatever. I'm not sure on the details, but if you're a Luton fan travelling up, then please do pay your respects first of all. So just on that, just wanted to say that on Luton, I think we need to go strong. We need to win this game because the cut one would be nice. Palace Everton in the next round. So I think we go strong. We've got what's it going to be on the 16th. So you've got 14 days between then and the Brighton game. So you've got 2 weeks to rest your players out afterwards. So I think you go as strong as you can. If you play the starting 11 as you did against Burnley, if we can put in that same performance as we did in the first half hour, then we'll be too much for Bolton. So let's not mess around. Let's go out there. Let's win the game, and then come back to the Kenilworth Road area for 2 weeks off. And I think that the Luton players are going away for a little bit. I'm not sure whether it's Dubai or Abu Dhabi. So hopefully they can go to that on the back of a third round win.
Yeah, as you started there, Jamie, Ian Purslow, the Bolton fan that sadly lost his life after collapsing at Bolton versus Cheltenham the other day. Just wanted to echo what you said. Very, very tragic story. And Luton fans, please keep if you go into the game, please keep your eyes out for any kind of tributes that Bolton will be planning. It is a complete tragedy, and when you go to a football game, you don't expect anything like that. Of course, with Luton fans had our sort of own situation where the football community comes together in times of real hardship, and hopefully that's a situation again that can sort of follow suit on Tuesday. The game itself, Jamie, as you mentioned, 2 weeks until we play after this game, so you expect it to be fairly strong. You sort of look at the next round as well. I know it's potential Premier League opposition, but still beatable. Rob Edwards will be wanting to get as far as possible in this cup. And I think you or Kieran might have said it in the previous pod that the prize money, to a lot of Premier League clubs getting into the fifth round, that it won't sort of batter an eyelid, but for Luton Town it will be fantastic considering how we are run, how we continue to be run. I'm expecting Bolton to be the best forms of themselves again. Very difficult to break down. I mentioned it when we previewed them before. I think they're a championship team playing in League One, and the way things are panning out for them at the moment, that's sort of being proven true. I sort of put in my tweet afterwards that they were as organised as you're going to come across this season, and I'm sort of expecting the same again. But I think the fact that we've got to play them now, we've got to see exactly how they operate against Premier League opposition, and how we respond to disappointment. I'm backing us to go through. Jamie, what is your score prediction for this game?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go for 2-0 Luton. If we can play like we'd played against Burnley, and certainly in that first half, then we probably can get to 2-0 in the first half and then see out the second half without a lot of stress. I think defensively they're really good going forward. They do have some good players, but I think we've got the defenders to be able to deal with anything that they throw at us. So I think the first goal was huge, and we'll get that, and then we'll get a second one in quick succession, and then that'll be tied on.
I'm going to go 2-1. Yeah, I think it's going to play out very similar, where they will cause us harm. We'll cause them a little bit of harm. We'll expect to see a little bit more of the ball. Yeah, depending on how we go in terms of personnel. I think, Barkley and Lokonga playing. It's the Barkley and Lokonga show at the moment. They've been absolutely fantastic, and I don't think, sort of alluded to before, there's not too many midfield partnerships that are better than them two in current form. So I think those two could be key. But yeah, I think it's going to be another game where we are really tested to the maximum. Bolton will be full of confidence after what they saw at Kenilworth Road. I expect it to be atmospheric. I expect it to be a difficult place to travel to. But I think we'll get the job done this time. I think we need to show a bit of grit and sort of resilience. But yeah, we've shown that in abundance over the last few years. Hopefully, setting a tie up with maybe Crystal Palace away. I think I'll take that one over Everton. But to be fair, both are very good ties, I think. Well, Jamie, that is it for today. A big thank you for coming on. A big thank you to everybody else watching and listening at home. On socials, we are Oak Road Hatter. Apart from Instagram, we are Oak Road Hatter Pod. Please make sure to check out the website as well. We are www.oakroadhatter.com. We've got lots of stories going up at the moment whenever there is transfer news. When players start to sign as well, we will start to do a bit more analysis into those players. We mentioned that sort of Nelson Abbey potential arrival. We'll definitely do something on that if that proves to come to fruition. But until after this Bolton game, it is goodbye from us.